Oh, do we have people in already? Awesome. Well, welcome so much. I'm so glad to have you all here. Thanks again for joining REVOLT's 2021 FESTA. My name is Laurie Lin, and I'm really excited to talk to you guys today about business strategy in K-pop. It's not something we usually think of together, but I actually think that business strategy has had a huge role in making what we know as Korean pop what it is today. I actually started listening to Korean pop in 2008. So this is really a reflection on how it's changed over the years to be what it is today, the huge global presence that we know it as. So if we start, my personal background is in business development. So I spent my college years doing the item on the left, studying graphs and charts and all sorts of business frameworks, with the goal of understanding how businesses make themselves unique relative to other businesses. This is a lot of a branding play, but it's also a business strategy to make sure that they're going to be successful. So I'm going to introduce one specific business development concept that businesses use to make themselves set up to succeed and set up to be differentiated relative to other ones. But if I started business development studies in college, I have, again, been doing K-pop since 2008, so much longer than that. And it's really phenomenal for me to be able to take those business development concepts and apply them to K-pop and say, this is why Korea has been able to take what was a very small music industry, turn it into a Hallyu wave, and then bring that to a global stage and actually dominate elements of that. So the one business development concept I would love for you guys to take away from this conversation is Blue Ocean Strategy Canvas. If you walk up to someone in business development and say, hey, I know business development, I know Blue Ocean Strategy Canvas, they'd be like, oh, yeah, that's a business development concept. And then you can tell them Blue Ocean Strategy Canvas and business development are key parts of what make K-pop successful as it is today. Why is that? Well, if we rewind quite a bit, before we had Blue Ocean, we had Red Ocean. And the idea of a red ocean is that there's a limited industry in which all players compete. So if we think there are, say, 100,000 people who listen to Korean music, then all of the people in a red ocean industry are competing for the same 100,000 listeners. And they can only listen to so much music. So if I get this customer, then this other company doesn't have that customer. The idea of Blue Ocean is there are not 100,000 listeners. There are 100 listeners right now. And if I can try and target someone who doesn't listen to K-pop right now, I can grow the industry to be bigger than what it was before. This is something that actually BTS is very well known for. BTS started out as something that K-pop listeners were like, oh, I think this is going to be really great. I think BTS is super awesome. And then they were able to reach a lot of people who had never listened to K-pop before. That is the definition of Blue Ocean. And the strategy canvas is what companies do to try and set up those groups to be as differentiated as possible and appeal to people who currently aren't being spoken to today. So what I want to do is I actually want to jump into an example that's outside of K-pop. This is from a Medium article written by Trang Lee. And what I'd love to show you guys is how a Blue Ocean Strategy Canvas can be used prior to a debut to try and say, we haven't made anything yet, but I think we can make something that nobody else is making right now and capture a new group of people that is not currently part of this industry. So Coursera and Udemy are two learning platforms, and they're both really great ways to learn things that are really cool. But as you can see by these two lines, they're different in many ways, but they're also similar in many ways. And in fact, a lot of areas are similar enough that probably it's not strange that the current feedback around Coursera and Udemy is you can choose whichever one you like. Whichever one has the course you want to take, they're similar enough. So if you want to come in here and you want to make something new, you can say, here's my Blue Ocean Strategy Canvas for Coursera and Udemy, the current players in the learning platform market. And what I want to do is I want to appeal to people who don't currently use Coursera or Udemy. I want to make something that doesn't focus on, oh, you know what? We don't currently focus on an instructor's popularity. Maybe if I focus on how popular the instructor is, I can capture a different part of the market. I can make something like Masterclass. Masterclass says I'm not going to focus on giving people accreditation for the courses that they take. And I'm not going to make things like a college course style. I'm not going to mandate that you join for an hour a week. I'm going to focus on creating really fun material with really high quality video and super popular instructors. So people who used to say, you know what, I don't really want to spend my free time on Coursera or Udemy doing learning and development are now going to say, you know what, that masterclass is pretty cool. I wouldn't mind signing up for masterclass and learning something new. This is how Blue Ocean Strategy Canvas and business development can change an industry and help someone who's trying to enter a market differentiate themselves and set themselves up for success by being different than everyone there already. The types of people who do Coursera and Udemy might like Masterclass, but more importantly, Masterclass gets an opportunity to speak to people who weren't being spoken to by Coursera and Udemy. So we jump back into K-pop. Today, I want to talk about 3 revolutions that are happening right now. The first one is YG Treasure Box. And what I'd love to show you guys is a Blue Ocean Strategy Canvas for the 12 members of Treasure. It's a really interesting story because Treasure starts out as 7 members, goes to 13, then 12, and when going to 12, becomes one unit of 12 members, rather than a unit of 7 and a unit of 5. All of these decisions can be explained using the Blue Ocean Strategy Canvas. All of these were strategic decisions made to develop the business further. And it's a really interesting thing to understand because we're very protective of which members get to be included. And it's really hard for you to sit there and say, my favorite member wasn't included. But seeing a Blue Ocean Strategy Canvas can help you understand a couple more elements of this and say, you know what? This is the right thing to do. And my member wouldn't have stood out in this group. This wouldn't have given them an opportunity to grow and really showcase themselves. That's actually what I want to talk about in Produce 101. So we're not going to do a formal strategy canvas for Produce 101 because there are 101 girls, and that's definitely one way to figure out who stands out. Just put a lot of people on the stage and say, who do you like the most? But Produce 101 is really interesting because my personal opinion is that talent is very important to who gets to be a star. But there are a lot of things other than talent. And what I'm going to talk about is that it takes a village to build a star. And there are some people in Produce 101 who had the opportunity, who had a lot of talent, but didn't have that village to back them up. So we'll talk a little bit about some concepts of Blue Ocean Strategy Canvas and why that revolution of creating a village to support the stars is the direction that we're going in now. The final revolution I want to go over is girl groups in general. Because after we start that revolution with Produce 101 and say we want villages to support these stars, the next thing is to normalize that revolution, to pave the road for female artists everywhere. And what's really interesting is the people paving that road are the female artists themselves. If they're able to pave the road for themselves, the next thing they want to do is turn around and pave the road for other female artists. These are the 3 revolutions that are happening right now, and it's really phenomenal to be able to break down the business concepts behind them that show us why these things are successful and what we have to look forward to. So, starting with YG Treasure Box. YG Treasure Box was a 2019 reality TV show that created the new boy band Treasure. They started with 29 boys, and they said, we're going to end up with one 7-member team, which is a lot of boys for a very small final team. But this was also a very strategic endeavor by YG. When he first starts out this program, he breaks everyone into 4 units, largely based on experience. But one team, D team, is a very experienced Japanese team. And this is very new for YG because they do not traditionally have non-Korean members. In fact, this is going to be one of I believe the first Japanese member for YG overall. So this is pretty groundbreaking for them. And one of the reasons that they're doing this is because Blackpink has a little bit of a global presence, in fact, quite a big global presence. But when we talk about YG's boy bands and global presence, we're really talking about Big Bang. Big Bang was so loved in Japan in a way that no other boy band for YG has really been able to dominate. And so what other groups outside of YG have done to try and get a step up in that global presence is to include a member of a different ethnicity to better resonate with the people in that country. YG has not yet done that. And the fact that he has created a unit just from Japan shows that he's very serious about having Treasure really appeal not just domestically in Korea, but globally outside of Korea for a number of different fans. If you're lucky enough to be one of the 29 boys, the next step is figuring out how to be part of the debut team or how to become a Treasure. The 3 challenges that YG sets up in this TV show to help these people stand out and help him figure out who needs to be included on that debut team are really, really interesting and really help create that blue ocean strategy canvas. The first one follows those units. So each of the 4 units performs, and he picks 7 people who stand out in those units. He then says, all right, pair up in groups of 2 and perform a duet together. And the idea is he's going to be able to see a little bit of the teamwork between members and which groups have really cute interactions with each other. Because we as fans really love when the boys are able to interact with each other on stage. But then YG also throws in a little bit of a plot twist, because one of the things that also makes us really love these characters is the story behind them. And so whether it's a story about how these boys work really well together, or a story behind, well, I let you guys pick your teams, and you picked your best friends or people you really like, and now I'm going to say everybody who's not part of the top 6 duets is going to send one of those 2 duos home. Of the 2 of you, only one of you gets to stay. Woo! Such an amazing storyline that is very, very heartbreaking, but also makes you really fall in love with each of these people. All of this is very strategic decision-making so that he can help set these boys up to succeed as best he can, even though it might feel a little cruel on the way over. But the blue ocean strategy canvas really becomes apparent when he starts doing the position challenge. In the position challenge, this is the final challenge, and he says each person, each category between vocal, dance, and rap is going to have one number 1 person, and that number 1 person is automatically a member of Treasure. That is the core flavor of Treasure, and the other 4 slots are going to be selected essentially around those 3 members. So what he's essentially saying is, this is the strategic direction and vision for the new business unit, Treasure. And based off of that strategic direction, I'm going to build around that and make sure all of the members are unique to each other. One of the reasons this is so important is because not only is it phenomenal to have the synergy of lots of different members that are all additive to each other. Each person brings something new to the table, and therefore more people love Treasure than if we had fewer members or if some of the members overlapped. It also means that sometimes if you have 2 members that are too similar to each other, one can overshadow the other and start a couple fan wars. So for the purpose of larger footprints and smaller fan wars, we really do need this to be blue ocean strategy canvas. Let's talk a little bit about how the canvas is used. We did this with the Udemy and Coursera example, but the 3 things that we're going to cover here are 1, how do we pick 7 members to create Treasure? 2, why would we add 6 members on top of that afterwards? And then after one of those members leaves, and we have a 7-member group and a 5-member group, why would we combine the 2 of them together? So the first thing here is our 7-member group, Treasure. I have 2 halves of this. The first one is focused on, oh, I'm so sorry, it's a bit blurry. I'll read these out. The first, the left-hand side is around popularity and appeal. So we have domestic appeal, Japanese appeal, and global appeal. And these can be really overlapping because what we really want is all of these to be really high numbers. We want these to appeal to everyone. The next three are vocal, rap, and dance. And again, we want these to be high numbers, but it's normal for a band to have a couple of rappers and a couple of vocalists. And it's normal for vocalists to not really rap very much, and vice versa. For Treasure, we have overall fairly high numbers across dance, which is normal for a boy band. We have a couple of people who have really great vocals and a couple of people who are lower on the vocal scale, but really great rappers, and that's also normal. I will say it is really amusing how many of the vocalists in Treasure are fairly decent at rapping, but the left-hand side just says that this is a talented boy group. And that's to be expected. These are really experienced people with a lot of training and experience. But the right-hand side is about flavor. It's about, am I going to like this member? I'm not talking about how talented they are and whether or not I like their voice. I'm talking about whether or not I like the tone of their voice, whether or not I like Haruto's low tone for rapping, or if I like Hyunsek's higher tone for rapping, whether I like swag or someone who's elegant. All of these flavors are things that help you decide which of these people is going to be your bias. And we have a good amount of differentiation on this side. But if I could point out a couple of areas where we don't have a lot of people. In leadership, for the original Treasure group, we have one very clear leader, and everyone else seems pretty content to let that leader lead. It also helps that Hyunsuk is 21 at debut and is considerably older than the majority of the other members, who are 18 or younger. So it feels right to let the oldest member, by so much, really lead the group. But it does mean that one person is really carrying the leadership weight. The other two things are, there is some artistry here, which has become increasingly important for boy bands, especially as Namjoon continues to compose amazing songs for BTS. But we don't have a lot of artistry there. At this point, Treasure has a couple people who have studied music composition, but not any composers. And the last item is energy. I am personally a very high energy person, and I really love all of these members. But let's say for a moment that I'm an introvert. And on top of being an introvert, I resonate with other people who are also more introverted. And I would prefer to hang out with someone with a little bit lower of an energy, rather than some of the very high energy people we often get in K-pop that are running around and doing all sorts of challenges with very high energy. If we have no members that are different in that aspect, then maybe the people who prefer introverts aren't really going to resonate with this group. YG puts together an amazing Treasure group with 7 members who have a lot of differentiation, and they would have been very successful in and of themselves. But there's an opportunity to introduce additional members, and after YG Treasure Box, those members also have enough people who know about them and are fans of them that YG can take a look at this and says, yes, decision 1, make these 7 people debut. Decision 2, add new members, because I have 3 opportunities to make this boy band even better. So I'm going to focus on one specific member, which is Asahi. And again, on the left-hand side, this is about talent. This is about popularity. We want these numbers to be high, but it's not bad if they overlap a lot of other members. Asahi overlaps a couple other members in this aspect. He doesn't have particularly high peaks in areas that we didn't already have peaks. But then if you look at the right-hand side, Asahi's very interesting because he is the introvert of the group and the composer of the group. When other boys are going to be running around and having a blast outdoors and eating lots of food, Asahi's going to say, I'm very happy to stay indoors in my room when everybody else has left and I finally get peace and quiet. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to draw. I'm really sorry, but I'll be kind of quiet when I draw. And then I'm going to compose some music. Asahi resonates with a group of people that no one else really could speak to in terms of members of Treasure so far. And so adding him to the group, not just as a Magnum member, but consolidating him afterwards and letting him interact with the other members really creates something new for Treasure. It's very obvious looking at Asahi's graph that it makes sense to create a new group, to add Asahi to that group, and to let him interact. Let him in Magnum interact with Treasure. But the next thing that I'm going to show you, which is going to look a little crazy, is all 12 members together. And what I'll do is I'm going to have one color be all of the treasure members. That's the blue here. And one color be all of the Magnum members. That's the pink here. Earlier we said, yes, it's a lot of members. And on the left-hand side, it still is lots of very talented members. But on the right-hand side, where we earlier had one clear leader, we now have three. We have two very clear leaders that share the title of leader and bear the burden of all 10 boys, all other 10 boys together, because they definitely need a few babysitters in this group. But we also have a Japanese leader who's able to not just lead the Japanese members and be there for them in a way that it might not be easy for Korean members to do, but also answer questions in Korean, in Japanese, in a way that Korean members wouldn't be able to. So at MAMA, when Treasure is accepting the award for the 2020 Rookie Award, you first see some of the leaders answer, you see a non-leader answer, and then you see a Japanese member answer in their native language. This really is a push to be a global group. You also see Asahi and a couple other members enter the artistry area. What's really phenomenal about this is Asahi is a composer that works best with other members. So he composes a lot of things with other Japanese members. And then we are able to have the artistry really and where we had a couple people who were decent artists before, we now have a lead composer who can work with them and have really great duo composed songs that we wouldn't otherwise have. And the last item is we now have a lot of different energy levels, which is really, really nice because we're adding a couple of people who are not super high energy, which means our leaders don't have too much babysitting to do. And in fact, the person who is highest energy that gets added is Jihoon, the second leader of Treasure. So we're saying, most energetic person, you get to be the leader, you get to make sure that everybody else is somewhat controlled. And that ends up with a really amazing approach to creating a boy band that's going to be net different to each other. Each of these boys is able to add something new relative to other boys here. Each of these boys is going to feel different and have different fans than other boys. And if you like someone a lot, my personal bias is Bang Yadam, and watch a lot of things, watch all of the things that have Bang Yadam in it. Over time, you might find that the exposure to one member makes you fans of another member. This is one of the key parts of the Blue Ocean strategy. If I can make you a fan of one person, and use that to give you exposure to another person. That's how we have a larger footprint. So if I can get you to synergize rather than overlap and overshadow each other, I can use this Blue Ocean strategy canvas to set this boy band as far up for success as I possibly can. But if Treasure members are Blue Ocean to one another, the next question is Treasure as a group going to be Blue Ocean to all of the other groups already in K-pop? And this is a somewhat complex question because the answer is Blue Ocean strategy canvas is not meant to answer the question of, is this going to be successful? It's meant to set up a business to be as different and as capable of success as possible because they're not directly competing with something else that already exists. From that perspective, Treasure is Blue Ocean. They are different from the current groups. But are they going to be revolutionary? Are they going to be super successful? Are they going to be the next BTS? That is not something that Blue Ocean Strategy Canvas tells us. It just says they have an opportunity to. So in terms of the Blue Ocean Strategy Canvas for boy bands overall, Treasure has a unique size. There are 12 boys, when most members are smaller, so 5 to 7 members in a group, or a lot larger, like 17 or NCT. It has subunits, which is not uncommon, but is also a little different. And they're actually all very young. If Hyunsuk is the oldest member at 22, it means that every single person here is younger than Jungkook of BTS. And so it's going to resonate with a younger audience than a lot of other boy bands currently do. They also have a lot of artistry, which we already talked about, but is so important because that is the direction that we're moving in for boy bands. The final item that does help them stand out a lot is their polish. The favorite thing for their fans to say about their polish and their performance is that the rookie of the year doesn't perform like a rookie. And that's a really great thing to have, but it speaks to their talent and experience. The polish in their personality is what really makes them stand out. The way that they answer questions about what does it mean to make good music? Well, all music is amazing. What does it mean to be a good artist? An artist that makes money or an artist that makes the music that they want? Well, an artist that makes money means that they are resonating with their audience and is able to give their audience a lot of happiness and joy. I want to be an artist that makes money because I want to be an artist that creates joy for my fans. That is polish in personality. And what it means is where member age being young helps them resonate with the younger crowd, the polish in their personality helps them resonate with veteran and older fans like myself, like a Nuna fan that is able to say, I'm just so happy that there are boys like this out there and I want to support them. So these things help Treasure be Blue Ocean, but whether or not they're going to be super successful and be the next revolutionary boy band is actually up to the fans. Blue Ocean tells us that this group has a really good opportunity for success. But whether or not they're going to be super successful, for BTS, ARMY was the one who decided that. ARMY is what makes BTS truly different from every other boy band. And so here, treasure makers or tumes now have the opportunity to step up and decide whether or not they want to help Treasure be super, super revolutionary, or if Treasure just is set up to be very, very good as a boy band. So let's talk about something where the fans have already spoken. The next revolution I want to talk about is Produce 101. Specifically, who stands out in a crowd during Produce 101 and who stands out in a crowd after Produce 101. Because it's very interesting to see what Produce 101 says makes somebody very stand out and what people after Produce 101 says, no, that person is a star. And again, I've mentioned this, but the difference is the support that they have. So Produce 101 was a TV show in 2016. And the reason it was so unique was that it was entirely fan vote based. A number of girls would be eliminated every round, and the top 11 girls at the end of the final round would debut as the girl group IOI. Now, at the time, we did think this was entirely fan vote based, but there have been quite a few controversies since then. It does not change the fact that the people who were successful in Produce 101 versus the people who were not successful after Produce 101 are largely differentiated by the village behind them. So if the solution to Produce 101, its question around who stands out, is not a blue ocean strategy canvas, where we very meticulously pick out how we put together a girl group where every member is unique. If we just say, vote for your favorites, what you might end up with is 11 girls who are all very similar. And even though they have a lot of interesting characteristics and stand out from each other in a lot of different ways, all of the members of the IOI group are very girly. Their concept and image is very girlish. And so a couple of the people who don't get a chance to stand out and Produce 101, some of the criticism that the show had was around its editing. The village that Produce 101 created was not a village meant for everybody. There were a couple of girls without companies or a couple girls in smaller companies like Happy Face, where one of the members is actually on record in a behind the scenes interview saying, if you had given us an actual chance, if you didn't edit us out completely of all of the airtime for that first audition, maybe we would have had a chance. If you didn't say you have to go online and hunt us down in order to see anything from the Happy Face members, we might have made it past the first cut. And so that editing really was saying, not everybody gets a chance to stand out just because you're here. The second item that received a bit of criticism was the visual and images. I've already mentioned that the IOI girls were all very girly. One of the reasons for this was the final challenge was based on concept. And the concept that won was a very girly image. So all of those girls got a couple of extra votes that really did make a difference and helped a lot of people who were very girly join the top 11. That in itself is not a negative thing. Just to have 11 people who were voted as the most popular is not a negative thing. What feels a lot more negative is the girl group shown here is called Bulldog. And of these 5 girls, 4 of them competed in Produce 101 and auditioned together. Their audition was actually aired because it was phenomenal. They put together a really good teen crush, kind of boyish charm performance that really wowed everybody who was watching and needed to be aired. But immediately after that, they were asked, okay, well, now show us a girly concept. Well, in order for me to be good, I have to be good at what I do and be girly. Well, they were asked to dance to a song in an SNSD style, and they weren't able to do it. It was a very sudden request. It was not the concept that they had trained for, and these were trainees. So they were criticized for their lack of ability to be girly, rather than praised for their ability to execute against the concept that they were given. And as a result, were given really low scores and put in a lower group. So we definitely had a couple girls who didn't really get a chance to stand out. One of the girls who did still stand out was Jeon So-yeon. And it's really interesting because she still doesn't match the visuals and image that Produce 101 was trying for. So what we'll talk about next is what happens after Produce 101. These girls didn't get a chance to stand out, and IOI does. But after Produce 101, after the editing from Mnet, what happens next? Who gets to be a star long-term? There is a little bit of a spoiler here because the image you're seeing is, again, Jeon So-yeon. But if we want to talk about the revolution is the IOI girls in Fantagio, Jellyfish, and Pledis going to different girl groups afterwards and not being Blue Ocean Strategy campus. These girls are amazing in IOI. They're very loved, they're very talented, they have a lot of popularity when they leave to go to their other girl groups. But they greatly overshadow all of the other members because they're viewed as much higher in all of their skills and all of their popularity. And we aren't able to see any of these girls have the same presence as IOI or create a new presence in their new girl group. So Weki Meki, Gugudan, and Priston all aren't able to get to IOI level, but they also aren't able to have their own separate flavor and style because they're still known for their IOI members. It's a very difficult conversation because there was a lot of talent in these girls, but their companies did not give those girls the ability to flourish as the people that they were. They were put into another girl group, given a new concept, given new members, and said, do IOI again. Well, there were a couple IOI girls who did do really well. Somi came in from JYP, and she was Korea's sweetheart. She had just been on 16 and done fairly well. And after her time with JYP, she moves on to Black Label, where she becomes a solo artist and still has an opportunity to continue doing very well. Somi does a really good job in IOI overall, and overall I would say was stable because she came in on a high note and she left on a high note. That makes her very different than the next person I want to talk about, Chungha. Chungha comes in from M&H Company, and M&H is not a name that anybody really knows before Chungha goes on to Produce 101. And yet Chungha is able to make the top 11 because she showcases amazing dance skills that really win over the crowd. I will note that Chungha does not have an actual girly concept. She can do the girly concept and she has the visual for it, but her actual concept and what she resonates the most with is a very strong dancer in a girl crush theme. So when she leaves IOI and she's asked to do more girly concepts, they don't immediately take off. In fact, they don't take off enough that eventually her company says, "Ooh, I don't know how many more times we can do this. In fact, this might be the last one. So for this next one, do whatever you think makes most sense. Like, you do you. You were good enough to get yourself into IOI. Do whatever you think will get yourself to stay relevant in the Korean music conversation. And she says, well, in Produce 101, I was a dancer. They loved me and they picked me because I was a dancer. The judges and the trainers said that I was going to revolutionize dance in Korea. So that is what I'm going to come here and do. She is now one of the most beloved solo performers because the way that she dances and performs on stage really is revolutionary. And the people who have come after her have only followed in her footsteps and changed the level of dance for girl groups in Korea everywhere. This is a new conversation for Korea. This is a revolution in dance for Korea. So if Chungha has a village behind her, an M&H company that is willing to support her artistry, then the next person that we have to talk about is a non-IOI member who also gets a chance to shine because her company sees her succeed. In fact, in Produce 101, it has been said that Jeon So-yeon is the best trainee of all of Q. They really believed in her before signing her to Produce 101. But after Produce 101, she walks away with a lot of experience and a lot of criticism. Her number one critique is that she is too ugly to be a girl group member. That really hurts because her brand is talented but ugly. And she thinks about this for a moment and says, I wrote my own lyrics. I wrote my own raps and I performed them well. I'm very talented but ugly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on Unpretty Rap Star, another TV show, and become talented and ugly. I'm going to rebrand myself and say it doesn't matter if I'm unpretty because I'm bringing to you guys the artistry that you wanted, the artistry that you loved. If I'm not the top 11, but I still place really well, that means that somebody out there really wants to see this. And it's just not the viewers of Produce 101. She does really, really well on Unpretty Rap Star. And instead of debuting her immediately to leverage that popularity, Cube chooses to hold her and place her as the leader of G Idol. They give her artistry ability because she's showcased that before. She absolutely gets to write her own rap lyrics. But then she goes one step further and says, well, I really enjoy debuting. Can we do that? We've got 6 really great girls who are ready to debut right now. Can we find a way to let them do that? And the response is, we don't have a song for you guys. We need to wait for a really good song. So she says, give me what we've got. I'm going to finish the composition for this, and we're going to debut with La Ta Ta. She gets to be the first step for a rookie girl group to get to compose their own music. She gets to be the start of the next revolution. It takes a village to make a star. You really need to have a company that believes in you. You really need to have a team to work with. Having something like Weki Meki, where all the girls overshadow one another, or some of the girls do, is really, really complicated and a difficult position for them to be in. Having a company that believes in you and gives you the ability to be an artist, and having a team that you can work with. These are the 2 elements of the village that some of the Produce 101 members didn't get, even if they were in the debut group. And some of the girls did get. And yet we still continue to make that mistake with other people. If we know it takes a village to make a star, why do we continue to make this mistake? It's because we still are struggling with the idea that these female idols also are going to be artists, that they also want to be artists. It is not unknown that in Korea, the vast majority of composers and writers are actually male-dominated. In fact, boy bands have been writing and composing their own songs for a while now, from BTS to B1A4 and even Beast. From second-generation groups, they've been permitted to compose in ways that female groups have not. One of the most famous for this is, oh, you know what? I'm jumping too far ahead. Let me actually talk about this image for a moment. This is from Miss Back. This is actually a TV show that is happening right now in 2020, or it started in 2020, but it's now 2021. And the premise of the show is Some of these girls were a little bit more successful and really did get a chance, but these girls are largely ex-girl group members who did not get a chance to really shine in their girl group. They did not get a village before. And now they're saying, even though I wasn't even able to become the performer I wanted to be, I was given a concept by my company. I might have been tricked into a concept by my company, but I want another chance to come back and not just be a performer, but be an artist. And so that's the next revolution that we're here to talk about. Not just saying it takes a village to make a star, but that the girls are making their own villages and they're making them for each other. Miss Back is a really fun and interesting concept because the lead and the center of this image is Miss Back. That is her name. And what she says is, you know what? It's very, very hard to do this. It's very hard to be a soloist. I have a platform and I want to use it to give these other girls a chance to come back. One of the things that she says on the show that's particularly touching is she says, I have 8 new daughters. The normalization of the revolution is the girls paving the road for other girls to make their own villages. The 2 girls that are most well known for this are, again, Jeon So-yeon. I can talk about her for days, but I can also talk about Moonbyul of Mamamoo for quite a while. She is the most credited female idol in K-pop right now, and both of them are rappers, which is the next step to overcome. Rappers have been allowed to write their own lyrics for a while, but both of these girls have been given the opportunity to compose, and that is net new. So what both of these girls have done for their groups is start by writing their own rap lyrics, get the opportunity to compose, and then turn back around and say, hi G-Idol, hi Mamamoo. I've fought really hard for the ability to be able to write and compose my own music. What I would like to do next is give you an opportunity to be a part of the creative direction as well. I will say that Rainbow Bridge World has always been a good village for Mamamoo. They have been a lot better about giving them artistic direction, even if they've been criticized for their marketing ability before. But Cube has not been well known for giving female idols the opportunity to perform and do their own creative direction. This really is girls giving other girls a village of support. And an area that is very, very interesting to see this in is Queendom. Queendom is another, you guessed it, TV show where 6 girl groups were put together and said, compete against each other. The premise of this show will be, you guys normally choose to debut and come back at different times. So why don't we put you guys all together and have you guys compete against each other and see who's the best? But what actually happened in Queendom is we defined what it meant to be a queen. And the answer was artistry. What differentiated the top 3 groups from not the top 3 groups was their ability to break out of a concept and say, we are an artist, this is our image, this is our message. And I have created this message and I want to give it to you because I am an artist and I'm going to perform my own story for you. This was very, very new for all of these girls. And again, the top 3 were already there. They already had some idea or desire to be an artist. One person I have to talk about who did not make top 3 is Park Bom. Park Bom was a member of 21 who is famously known as a YG girl group who didn't get an opportunity to compose their own music. They were actually not allowed to do that. The same YG that created Treasure and added a composer in the debut group. Now we are in a position where Rose of Blackpink is getting ready for her solo debut, and she is being given the opportunity to compose her own song. These are the revolutionaries that normalize this for other writers, for other girls to become artists. So in this group of Queendom, besides G-Idol and Mamamoo, besides So-yeon and Moonbyul, we also have a couple girls who really get to challenge artistry for the first time. The first group I want to talk about is Lovelyz. And Lovelyz is really interesting because they do not succeed in becoming artists just in Queendom. But they get an opportunity to challenge being an artist because after placing last place, they are told if you place last again, you will leave the show, you will be eliminated. And it is in moments of desperation like this that companies said, okay, go do whatever you want. If we're gonna be eliminated anyways, if we don't do well, then do whatever you want. The worst that could happen is you place last again. And they said, all right, we'll take it. Instead of being cute and girly like every other song and comeback that we've had, we're going to be sexy. We're going to be a little different than we always have been. And even though they don't execute completely on this, they're still able to carve out enough brand for two of these girls to then challenge a solo career after Lovelace. That said, one of these girls were really, really successful in actually overcoming the image that their company had debuted them with. Oh My Girl comes in with an equally lovely image of being a very girly group. And what they do here is they provide 3 concepts that are not girly. This one right here is of a historical drama concept where they take a very happy song, they make it sad, and they bring a historical Korean concept to it. This shocks fans, and after Queendom, Oh My Girl gets recognition that they've never had before. They are now one of the top girl groups of Korea in a way that they would have never been before, and it is largely due to the fact that they are now viewed as artists in addition to performers, even if their concepts are still going to be a little bit more cutesy and a little bit more girlish. They've proved that they can do something else and that they want to do something else. The final thing that I want to chat about in this normalization of the revolution is that the way that the girls choose to be villages of support for each other goes beyond, hey, we should be an artist. Hey, you should get an opportunity to. Miss Back is that second image right there. And you can see how all of these girls who have gotten an opportunity to be performers before are really banding together in this new challenge to become artists. Even though this is a competition, even though only one of them gets to win and have their album created, there's so much family vibe around the challenge that they have to go through together. And they're all supporting each other as they try to become artists rather than just performers. The top 4 girls you might recognize a little bit more of. Hwasa, the girl furthest on the right, is a member of Mamamoo who has been an it girl for a while now. She's taken home a couple of awards at the end of year shows, and Jessie is no stranger to Gen 3 and Gen 4 listeners either. Both of these 2 girls have been viewed as it girls for one audience or another. And both of these girls also look up to the other 2 girls in the Refund Sisters group. The girl in yellow is Lee Hyori of Finkel, a Gen 1 girl group that debuted far before 2008. And I only barely knew because I have a tendency to look at very old things that I just really wanted to know about. But if I didn't know Lee Hyori, the fact that I love Mamamoo and Hwasa, and I think Jessie's very cool, means that I might watch a Refund Sisters stage and give these older idols an opportunity to be introduced to the new listeners of the Gen 3 and Gen 4 groups. So that is something that these idols are doing to try and support each other. If you didn't recognize Lee Hyori of Finkel, one of the Gen 1 groups, you're not going to recognize who I consider to be Gen 0. Jung-hwa is 51 and just finished battling cancer before she decided, you know what, now that that's behind me, let's go perform again. And in her return to the stage, yes, Lee Hyori and Jung-hwa are both idols to Hwasa and Jessie, but to share the stage and to share their fans with these previous generations and say, I want to give you a chance to shine again. This is how girls are giving other girls a village and normalizing this revolution of artistry and helping future generations understand the people of the previous generations that have created the foundation of K-pop and letting them come back to the stage once more, both as performers and as artists, because they really just had been waiting for us to come in and say, we wanted these Gen 1 and Gen 0 artists to come back. We wanted to have these people be artists rather than performers. And so now that these girls are being villages for other girls, it's on us to say, that's what we wanted all along, come give us more. So if I could close the K-pop portion with a quick summary. As new generations come, we've gotten bigger and bigger shoes to fill. Gen 0 has been amazing, Gen 1 has been amazing. Now we have Gen 3 and Gen 4 artists like BTS, like Treasure, and they're only going to become bigger. But that also means that we have bigger footprints to make. The K-pop industry has never been bigger, and it is partially in part to revolutions like the 3 we talked about today. The strategic decisions that YG made to set Treasure up for success, and the revolution that they're set up to start, much like the ones that BTS and other groups before them created to make them possible. We have revolutions like business development for Produce 101, proving that if you give artistry to people like Chungla and Soyeon, they will go further than people who have talent, image, popularity, but the lack of a village, a company, and a team that allows them to act on that artistry. And the last revolution has been that village being created by girls and turning that around to other girls so they can say, it's your turn to shine. I'm going to normalize this so that you get a chance to do this too. Because the blue ocean for female artists has not been the same as those for males, but the girls are working on it and trying to make that industry a little bit more friendly to the future generations. I want to tie this back to a couple of non-K-pop things, specifically Revolutionaries. We actually use Blue Ocean here at Revolutionaries for a couple of things. One item that I've been using Blue Ocean for a lot in this presentation has been the definition of revolutionary. Within business development, Blue Ocean is the idea that I'm going to make an industry different than it was before. I'm going to make it bigger, I'm going to make it better, I'm going to change this industry. It is one of the core things that I use to define whether or not something or someone is revolutionary. One of the ways that we're hoping to be revolutionary is by bringing business development and the K-pop community together. Because it's been very rare that people can say, I love business development, that's what I do. But also, I'm a huge part of the K-pop community, and I want to listen to what these people have to say. I want to understand what it is that makes these people really love K-pop. So what we're going to do is a little bit of professional fangirling to help people in business development understand more about why K-pop is revolutionary, and help people in the K-pop community better communicate to people outside of K-pop why this has been so revolutionary. The last thing is K-pop itself is revolutionary beyond music. It is a way to bring Eastern ideals and culture outside of the Eastern Hemisphere and introduce it to a global stage. Just like K-pop is revolutionary beyond music, so is Revolutionaries. We talk a lot about K-pop here, but also we talk about academia and ways that that has changed. We talk about indigenous peoples. There are a lot of things that are revolutionary in this century, and we're hoping to have an opportunity to share all of those with you. So that's what we're celebrating using the Blue Ocean Strategy Canvas for 2021's REVOLT FESTA. We're really glad to have you here with us, and hopefully you can go tell someone else you know a little bit something about Blue Ocean, business development, and why that has been so key to making K-pop revolutionary. I'd love to take any questions you guys have. And sorry, I know the lighting is not so great right now. Sorry, did we have a question? Oh. From what we've seen in the industry, it seems that male groups are more progressive and revolutionary in different ways. Why do you think this still happens, especially after seeing the dollar benefits? I actually think that this is twofold. And one of them, it's actually our fault. K-pop fans are predominantly female outside of Korea. In Korea, it is largely oppa, or what's the other term? For uncle fan? The idea that in Korea, domestically, girl groups with really girly images do very well because of the fan base in Korea. And outside of Korea, on a global stage, boy groups do really well because there are more female fans that like to listen to boy groups. Is one of the reasons why companies like to invest in boy bands. They have more of a global presence. And if you give them the opportunity, they will do really well in doing that. They let them be more progressive and revolutionary because earlier on, boy groups were given an option to say, well, if you want to compose, go ahead and compose. This is also partially because male composers were the norm prior to K-pop as a whole. So without having any idol composers, you would expect that a composer was male. So having an idol composer that was male just means that the difference is that it's an idol. Having a female idol composer means that not only am I using an idol instead of a composer, I'm also going to use a female instead of a male. So it was a little bit further for them to get there, which meant it happened later. But also, because the boys did it first, they got to see a lot of dollar benefits. And so the business development could very easily say, I should invest in boy groups because boy groups make more money, and not I should invest in artists because artists make more money. And so we're still trying to reconcile for that and figure out, oh, you know what? Girl groups should also be progressive and revolutionary because it's progressive and revolutionary that makes a lot of money, not male groups or male groups being progressive and revolutionary. But we're getting there, and I really hope to see a lot more of that because we have gotten a lot of opportunities in these past few years and a lot of shows in these past few years that really showcase that girls can do this and that people like it when girls do this. What can revolutionaries as a new company learn from all of K-pop revolution? Oh, that's a complex one. I think the first one is definitely Blue Ocean Strategy Canvas. The idea that we as a new company can try to brand ourselves in a way that's different from everything else. But I think that our core message and the idea of being revolutionary is very different in the K-pop space, and bringing K-pop to a conversation that people don't normally include K-pop for, which is revolutionary business development and a little bit of the love yourself ideas that BTS talks about. I think all of these already help us brand ourselves as something that's new. I think what it really is that revolutionaries as a company needs to keep reminding ourselves of these things that K-pop does. Things like community, things like loving ourselves, and things like how to differentiate ourselves from others. Those are the things that we can continue to remind ourselves. I do think that was the last question, but thank you guys all so much for joining us at the Revolt Festa for 2021, and I hope you guys have learned something. Have a great day and enjoy.